Chelsea Clinton is going to introduce her mother tonight ahead of the primetime speech that the secretary will deliver. Last week, Ivanka Trump introduced her dad and humanized him in that speech. What are we expecting to hear from Chelsea tonight?
Well, I think first and foremost, Chelsea is so proud of her mom. You know, it's amazing to think she was here 24 years ago when her father, was first receiving the nomination. And so she's extremely proud of her mom. She's proud of her family. But also, I think it's important to remember that, Chelsea's been working on her own issues for a long time. And, for her, it's really important to see a woman accept the nomination of a major party. And that's really, I think, first and foremost in her head is that, she's thinking of the other young women out there who are going to be really inspired by this moment. And she's been working on this at the Clinton Foundation for a long time. Obviously, she launched No Ceilings, which was a major effort to lay out what needs to happen to make full participation happen for women and girls around the world. So this is a really important moment.
Yeah, it's interesting, Kamyl. Ivanka Trump has pretty much lived her life in front of the camera. She was a model, just like her father. I mean, they both have had very public lives. Chelsea has been more like her mother, just doing really important work, but sort of behind the scenes, not really in the limelight. Are we expecting her, though, as Secretary Clinton clinches this nomination, to be more visible to the electorate going forward?
Well, I think, if you've been following the campaign closely, she's done, I think, at this point, almost triple digits worth of events for her mom. So she's been a really active spokesperson. She was in 08 also. And I think Chelsea is so good at, really talking about her relationship with her mom, right? They are so close. I watched them so many times on the phone. I've seen them connect in really ways that, I've thought about how I connect with my mom, and they're wonderful people to work for in that way. So I would expect her to continue speaking up about the issues that matter to both of them.
Yeah, I think it's, a lot of people have said that Hillary Clinton, is the most famous person in the world that people don't know. And I think, you're spot on. Something along the lines of, look, whenever I go out, my mother calls me. If I don't call by 11 p.m. to say I'm home or something like that would make people go, oh, she's just like me when my idiot son Vlad goes out and he's in his 40s and I have to text him, where are you? Even though I live alone, Mom. Thank you.
Yeah, totally.
So I think that would be something that I think people would be able to relate to.
Yeah, no, I think she's absolutely going to go up there and talk about who she is as a mom.
Yeah.
And the amazing mom that she's been to her, and it's just so evident the love they have, the connection they have, and I think that's going to come through. And I think also Chelsea is a mom now herself, right? And so she's really thinking about this set of remarks from that perspective, right? What does she want her kids to hear? What does she want kids around the country to hear when she talks about her mom?
So, Gabe, let me ask you. The Clintons have been in the public arena for so long. Most Americans, specifically when it comes to Hillary Clinton, already have an opinion about her. Over half of Americans, 55%, view her unfavorably. Will this speech tonight help to sway some of those voters, perhaps maybe bring those numbers down?
Well, certainly that's the hope, and I think what you're going to see tonight is very much part two of what Bill Clinton did the other night. President Clinton basically got on stage and said, you know everything about my wife, but this is Hillary Clinton, the person. And that's what Chelsea's going to try and do, obviously telling it from a slightly different perspective, but that's exactly the goal. They know her numbers aren't great in terms of favorability, in terms of trust. So what they're trying to do is humanize her, trying to make the case that at the end of the day, she has a family, she is a real person, and that's something that the campaign has struggled with. Using Chelsea and Bill's testimony is a big part of their appeal moving forward.
Leslie, Donald Trump, a lot has been made of the bump in polls that he's received off the back of the RNC last week. Can we expect the same for Secretary Clinton? And is that something that's just sort of baked into the political process?
It really is, I think, for folks that follow it all the time. Only in 92, 88, and I'm going to go back to 68 with Nixon, did you ever see the bump actually last and maintain, and the candidate just kept sailing all the way to November? In most cases, it fluctuates up and down 2 points. You've had these high water marks, but it all kind of settles back out. I think we're really going to know where we are about the third week of September.
Leslie, Mike Pence we just pointed out, he's going to be speaking very soon in Grand Rapids, Michigan. He's got a packed schedule. Donald Trump is making headlines, as all of you know, over those controversial comments he made in Russia. Is it unusual in your mind to see a campaigning so much during a convention. It used to be back in the old days. You let them have their fun, you let them have their party, you sit back, you take a week off, maybe you do a little fundraising. That's not been the case this time around.
True, and I think anybody who's been here and been involved in campaigns, I mean, I cut my teeth on campaigns in Texas and did 30 before I ever got to Washington, and you think about it, you're trained a certain way, and you can have certain techniques and certain messages you push, but it's so unconventional what he's doing. And if you look at the individuals within his campaign, they're not traditional political operatives. He may say that's an advantage. So all the rules are out the window. He's kind of making them up as they go along. I will tell you this, I'm breathing a bit more sigh of relief with Governor Pence than I am with Donald Trump.
Right.
You never know what he's going to say.
What he's going to say. And yet, Gabe, all of us here have been saying since June of last year, look, this is the moment that people, say that what Donald Trump has done or said is beyond the pale. It hasn't happened yet. But these comments over Russia and the hacking of Secretary Clinton's emails seems to be sticking a little bit more than in the past. And I think a lot of people are saying it's because there have been repeated instances where Donald Trump has either admired Vladimir Putin or he's suggested that, he and Putin see eye to eye. And then you have this discussion or this strategy of his where he talks about dismantling NATO or revamping NATO, which is exactly what Putin wants.
Right.
And now he's saying, go ahead and also hack my political opponent's emails. What are you hearing from insiders about these comments and how damaging they could be?
Well, there's always been a broad skepticism, at least for the last few weeks or months, that the next thing that Donald Trump is going to say is going to be the one that really turns people against him, because people have been saying that for months. But this one does feel a little bit different for a few reasons. I think one big part of this is that the entire world, or at least the entire news-consuming world, is focused on politics this week. And so this really broke through in a different way. But the other side of it is that this is something slightly new. We don't ever see campaigns do something like this, basically say, I'm going to side with Russia over my political opponent domestically. So obviously you've seen the Clinton campaign really key in on this, really try and make the argument that this is just something totally different with the number of military figures you've seen on stage. And we're going to continue to see that because I think they do see a real opportunity here to say, we disagree with a lot of things Donald Trump says, but this is an entirely new level.
Kamyl, the surprise moment last night was when Secretary Clinton appeared on the stage after President Obama delivered those electrifying for this crowd remarks. And there was that point, and then they very warmly embraced. Yeah, it was really strong. That really feel you. And then they embraced. It seems that as if these two, although at one point 8 years ago they were opponents, he brought her into the fold, into his cabinet. There's a real genuine affection now after all these years between them.
I totally agree. I think I've seen them before interact, and they have a total affection for each other. And for me, I arrived in Des Moines in July of '07 to work for Hillary Clinton, and to see how far we've come since then, to see their relationship.
Even in '07.
Even in '07, right? And, the campaign operations were so different.
Right.
And, I've, of course, met people who worked for Obama then. And, to me, the one thing I really remember, and that's kind of about this coming together point, is that the moment the secretary lost in 2008, she gave this amazing speech about the 18 million cracks, and she endorsed Obama so, with her whole heart. And I said to myself, I have to get on his campaign as fast as I can. I moved to Ohio. I was a press secretary in Ohio, and, I think that is really the foundation for all this, right, is that we all have this sense that, if we work together, we can really do what's best for the country.
Leslie, I was struck yesterday by President Obama's speech. There were some moments where it seemed to harken back to his 2004 convention speech when he was just a state senator. A lot of people since then have criticized President Obama for giving beautiful, eloquent speeches and not necessarily being able to move the needle forward on some of the things that he's wanted to do. But I felt like yesterday that a lot of people in this crowd were reacting to one thing that he said, which was part of what has motivated him throughout his presidency and his career has been the American people. And I felt that seemed to rally the crowd. They seemed to appreciate that. You saw people holding up signs. I mean, I know they give them out, but that's it. I mean, I know that they didn't just pull up thank you signs, right?
They didn't buy
those. I know that, right? But the idea that he was saying, look, this has always been about you, and the difficulties that he's had in moving moving the needle forward. You can ascribe to a multitude of things. Did you find it inspirational even as a Republican?
Absolutely. I think there's so few people that could watch that. You have to look and think that's such an incredible moment in time to be able to see, in person something like that. And even on television, he's so extremely skilled at telling a story and weaving in America many people want to see. You have this Republican love affair with Ronald Reagan. It was very much the same kind of thing. It brought many immigrant groups together. An interesting thing you just said when you were talking about Obama and Clinton, it reminded me of the Reagan-Bush relationship, which was very frosty.
Yeah, for sure.
Till now.
Yeah.
Just saying. You got to pick a camp.
Right,
and it just went on for decades in terms of which one you align with. So they would give some support, but some resources. But there's never the full kind of, bromance that you hope to see or a transition from one administration to hopefully another. So there's a lot of politics that go on here. People are thinking ahead. They're eyeing Donald Trump and, really kind of what the threat looks like there. And I think the president did an incredible job of trying to say, let's come back together. Because truthfully, this has almost been two conventions. It's the real pull to the left with the Bernie Sanders. And then if you watch 2 days later, you're, wow, we're all conservative Democrats. I'm not sure which one we fall into, but it's two different groups of people.
Do you think, Gabe, that President Obama was able to appeal to some moderate Republicans, people who are still... There are some that are on the fence about Donald Trump. There are some who've come right out and said, I can't do this. I'm talking about the Bushes and the Mitt Romneys of the Republican Party. Do you think that he was able to sort of appeal to them and say, because at one point he used some of the strongest language yet that I've heard used against Donald Trump, equating him to fascism, communism, and jihadism and homegrown demagogues.
Right, and then the White House today said that was not intended to be subtle. That's what he's talking about.
Right.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
So if we had any questions, no.
I think that was the goal here. He was clearly trying to make this a post-partisan affair. I think the thing to remember here is that Barack Obama is an extremely popular character within the Democratic Party. He lit up this room like no one else has this week, except maybe his wife. His goal was really to unite the Democrats and to say to others, our door is open for you. He wasn't like Michael Bloomberg yesterday, explicitly making the case, if you're not a registered Democrat, that's okay, come on in. But what he was doing was trying to paint a picture of an America that accepts people who are not, registered Democrats into this part of the political spectrum, basically making the case that supporting Donald Trump is un-American.
Gabe, I've been asking a lot of political reporters during the course of this week, given that we didn't see folks like John Kasich at the Republican convention, even though it was in his home state. We haven't, obviously, we mentioned the Bushes, the Romneys, et cetera. Could we see some high-profile Republican congressmen or senators deciding to come out in support of Hillary Clinton? Now, some people have said they may not say anything. Others are saying if Donald Trump continues to make some of the comments like what we saw yesterday, we may see that. What are you hearing from inside?
Yes, it's possible. I don't think it's extremely likely. What we probably won't see is anyone who's up for election this year in particular doing that, because while Hillary Clinton is still more popular than Donald Trump, she still has very low favorability numbers. And for someone like John McCain, for example, to go out and say that would be one bridge too far in Arizona. But you're certainly going to see the Clinton campaign making a push to try and get people to come out and say that. Absolutely.
All right. Kamyl Bazbaz, Gabe Debenedetti, Leslie Sanchez, we thank you so much for coming on.